My name is Natalie, and I'm 34 years old. I need to share a part of my life with you. It isn't a story I tell with pride, and it's heavy on my heart, but it is my truth. I have been married twice. In both marriages, I chased a dream of happiness, a simple desire for love, but love proved to be a fleeting guest in my home. The ache of it all still lingers. I met my first husband, Ryan, when I was 25. He had a way about him that was both friendly and sharp. He was curious about me, asking questions that made me feel seen, and his easy humor drew a smile from me effortlessly. Our beginning was beautifully simple. I was at a bus stop, tired after a long day, and so was he. "Looks like this bus is running on its own schedule today," he said, breaking the silence. I laughed, a real laugh, and agreed. We started talking, and that conversation felt like the start of something. He called the next day, and I said yes to seeing him again. We walked through a sun-dappled park, talking about everything and nothing, music, food, our dreams. He loved tea. I loved coffee. It was in these small, sweet differences that we found connection. He took my hand, and in that moment, I believed he was a truly good man. 8 months later, we were married. The early days were a blur of simple joys. He would surprise me with fresh fruit from the farmer's market. We took long, winding walks in the evenings. We'd curl up on the couch to watch old movies and cook dinner together, our laughter filling the small kitchen. I smiled so much back then. I thought to myself, this is it. This is love. This is the life I've been waiting for. But slowly, almost imperceptibly at first, things began to shift. The easy conversations dwindled into comfortable, then uncomfortable silence. He started going out more, his excuses vague, coming home later and later, a weariness in his eyes that had nothing to do with work. When I'd ask, "Is everything okay?" the answer was always a clipped, "I'm fine." But I knew he wasn't. A wall was being built between us, brick by brick. He stopped listening when I talked about my day. His eyes were constantly glued to his phone, a blue glow illuminating a face that had become a stranger's. Our dinners became silent affairs. The only sound was the clinking of our silverware against the plates, a lonely rhythm in a house that once hummed with conversation. I tried. I cooked his favorite meals. I suggested weekend trips. "Do you want to go out this weekend?" I'd ask, my voice full of a hope I was struggling to keep alive. "I'm busy," he'd reply without looking up. One evening, my heart couldn't take the silence anymore. "Ryan," I whispered across the dinner table, "do you still love me?" He finally looked at me, his expression unreadable. "Don't ask silly things," he said, and then he stood up and left the room. I sat there alone, the food growing cold on the table, my heart turning to ice. I wanted to scream, to cry, but no tears came. For months, I existed in a state of hopeful waiting, clinging to the belief that things would get better. They didn't. We were two strangers sharing a mortgage. I felt like a ghost in my own home, not a wife, not a partner, just a piece of the furniture he navigated around. The feeling of being lost was overwhelming. Finally, one day, I found the strength to say the words. "I can't live like this. I feel so utterly alone." He said nothing, just stared out the window. "I want a divorce," I said, my voice barely a whisper but firm. He turned and with a chilling indifference said, "Do what you want." And that was the end. 3 years of marriage, extinguished not with a fiery fight, but with the cold silence of apathy. I moved into a small apartment. It was empty, but it was mine. The first night I sat on the floor, surrounded by boxes, and the quiet was deafening. I was sad, profoundly sad, but underneath the sadness was a new feeling, safety. For the first time in what felt like an eternity, I could breathe. I spent the next year on my own, rediscovering myself. I walked for miles, listened to music that moved me, and lost myself in books. I promised myself, next time I will choose better. I will not rush. I will wait for a man who knows how to love. Then I met Kevin. He had a smile that could warm a room and a gentle kindness in his eyes. I saw him help an elderly woman cross the street, give up his seat on the bus. I thought, he is different. He is genuinely kind. We met at a mutual friend's dinner party. He listened intently when I spoke, asked about my job, my family. We talked for hours, and his laughter was infectious. He looked me in the eyes when I spoke, and I felt a gentle spark of hope ignite within me. He called the next day. "Can I see you again?" he asked. My yes was immediate. We met at a quiet cafe, and as he spoke passionately about his love for classic films, I let myself believe that this time it would be different. We married a year later. It was a small, intimate ceremony with our closest friends. I wore a soft pink dress and he wore a gray jacket. As we held hands and said our vows, I felt a wave of pure happiness. This is a new beginning, I told myself, but the familiar pattern began to emerge again, like a recurring nightmare. The silence, the distance, the growing coldness. He worked long hours, came home exhausted, ate his dinner quickly, and retreated to bed. "How was your day?" I'd ask. "Just work," he'd mumble. I would wait for more, for a story, for a complaint, for anything, but nothing ever came. Soon I was eating dinner alone again, the excuse always being that he was too tired. He stopped asking about my feelings, my day, my life. When I finally gathered the courage to tell him I felt lonely, he looked at me with a tired sigh and said, "You think too much." Those exact words. The same devastating phrase my first husband had used. It was like a punch to the gut. I had tried so hard. I had chosen so carefully. And yet I was right back where I started, in a home without joy, at a table without conversation, in a bed without love. I was tired, a deep, soul-crushing exhaustion. One evening I prepared a special dinner. I waited. He walked in, not even glancing at the table. "I ate outside," he said, his thumb already scrolling on his phone. "Do you want to just sit with me for a while?" I pleaded. "I need to sleep early," he replied, already walking away. I stood alone in the kitchen, staring at the food I had cooked with love. I felt utterly empty. I thought of my first tiny apartment, the one I had after the divorce. It was small, but I had felt calm there. Now I lived in a bigger house, but I was more lost than ever. 2 men, 2 marriages. 2 times I had offered my heart, and 2 times it had been dropped and left to break. I began to change. I stopped cooking for 2. I stopped waiting up. I stopped hoping. I started taking my walks alone again, sitting in the park, watching the world go by. I saw children laughing, elderly couples holding hands, and a deep longing ached within me. I started questioning myself. Is something wrong with me? But deep down, I knew the answer. No, I had given everything. I had loved with my whole being. But I was learning a painful lesson. Love isn't just about how much you give. It's about who you choose to give it to. I am still married to Kevin, but I have never felt more alone. I live in a house, but it isn't a home. I speak, but my words vanish into thin air. I smile, but only for the outside world. I don't know what the future holds, but I know this exhaustion is a sign. I wanted love, I wanted peace, and I thought marriage was the path to both. It wasn't. I married twice, and I am still in so much pain. Before I continue, I have to ask, where are you listening from? Just knowing that someone, somewhere, hears my voice and understands my journey gives me the strength to go on. I woke up early one morning. The sun streamed through the window, a beautiful golden light, but my heart felt like a lead weight in my chest. Kevin was still fast asleep, as he always was on weekends. I looked at his peaceful face and felt an immense, unbridgeable distance between us. 2 years we had been married, and I had played the part of the good wife dutifully. I made his breakfast, I kept the house immaculate, I greeted him with a smile. But I didn't feel seen. I didn't feel cherished. A few weeks prior, I had asked him directly, "Do you love me?" Kevin had looked at me, a flash of irritation in his eyes. "You always ask this," he'd said. "Because I don't feel it," I replied, my voice small. He stood up abruptly. "I work hard for us, I provide, that is love," he declared before walking out of the room, ending the conversation. I sat alone, sipping my cold tea, trying to force myself to believe him. But I couldn't. Love isn't a transaction. It isn't just a roof over your head. Love is care. Love is listening. Love is choosing to be present. The week after that conversation, he came home late every single night. "Work is crazy," was the constant refrain. "Can we just have dinner together one night this week?" I asked, my voice pleading. "Maybe next week," he promised. But that next week was a mythical time that never arrived. That Sunday, I visited my oldest friend, Sophie. As we sat in her cozy kitchen, she placed a cup of tea in my hands, looked me straight in the eyes, and said, "You look sad, Nat." The dam broke. "I feel empty," I confessed, and the whole story came tumbling out, about Ryan, about Kevin, about the crushing loneliness of being married to men who were ghosts in my own life. She listened without interruption. When I finished, she held my hand, her grip firm and steady. "You give so much of yourself, Natalie," she said softly, "but they don't give anything back." Her words echoed in my mind all night. You give too much. It was the simple, painful truth. I gave my time, my care, my affection, my love. And in return, I received silence, cold words, a quiet table, and an empty space beside me in bed. I started taking long walks every morning, needing the fresh air to clear my head. In the nearby park, I would sit on a bench and watch life unfold. I saw people walking their dogs, children chasing each other with shrieks of joy. I loved the sound of their laughter. It felt real, a reminder of a happiness that seemed so far away. One day, I saw an elderly couple walking hand in hand. He would occasionally stop to point something out to her, and she would smile at him with such adoration. The love between them was a tangible thing, quiet and profound. A tear escaped and rolled down my cheek. That's what I wanted. A simple, real love. That evening, to my surprise, Kevin came home early. "You're home before dinner," I said, a flicker of hope stirring. "Yeah, I'm tired," he replied. "Can we talk?" I asked gently. "Not now, my head hurts," he said, brushing past me and disappearing into the bedroom. I stood frozen in the hallway. I looked at the dinner I was preparing on the stove and slowly turned off the flame. I slid down the wall and sat on the floor, feeling small and insignificant. My voice had no home in this house. My heart had no place to rest. A few days later, I made one last attempt. "Kevin," I said, catching him before he buried his face in his phone. "We don't talk, we don't laugh. We are just two roommates, not partners in life." He looked up, his face a mask of annoyance. "What do you want from me, Natalie?" "I want to feel loved," I whispered. He sighed. "Love isn't always loud," he said, and just like that, he was gone again, retreating into his own world. After that, I stopped. I stopped asking. I stopped waiting. I stopped hoping. I cooked meals just for me. I watched my movies alone. I went to the park alone. I started reading again, finding solace in the stories of others. I began writing my thoughts down on my phone, searching for my own voice that had been silenced for so long. When Sophie came to visit again, she took one look around the sterile, silent living room and said, "It feels so quiet in here." "Yes," I said. "It's always quiet now." She looked at me, her gaze unwavering. "Do you want to stay in this life?" she asked. "I don't know," I answered honestly. I was so tired of breaking, of hoping, of starting over. But the thought of spending the rest of my life in a place where love was absent was even more terrifying. Kevin didn't seem to notice the shift in me, or perhaps he simply didn't care. He continued his routine, oblivious. I stopped trying to speak to him. I had no more words left for him. One morning, I looked at my reflection in the mirror. My face looked drawn, my eyes hollow. I spoke to the woman staring back at me. "You are still young. You still have time. Do not let your life wither away in silence." That day, I packed a small bag. I walked out of the house, closing the door softly behind me. I went to Sophie's. For 3 days, I heard nothing. Kevin didn't call. He didn't text. He didn't ask where I was. On the 4th day, a message finally appeared on my phone. It said, "Are you coming back?" Not "How are you?" Not "I miss you." Just a question of logistics. I didn't reply. Sophie saw the message. "You don't have to go back to a place that hurts you," she said. I nodded, tears welling in my eyes. She was right, but it was so hard to have failed again. But as I sat there, a different thought took root. This wasn't failure. This was choosing myself. This was learning. This was choosing peace. And choosing peace is a victory, not a failure. It is the highest form of self-love. Kevin never called again. Not once. His silence told me everything I needed to know. He was never truly my partner, just like Ryan. 2 men, 2 chances. 2 times I offered my heart, and neither of them knew how to hold it. I'm still at Sophie's for now, taking my time, figuring out my next steps. I have no desire to rush into anything, least of all another relationship. I just want time. Time to heal. Time to grow. Time to rediscover the woman I am when I'm not trying to be enough for someone else. Maybe love will find me again one day. But for now, I just want to feel free. I want to wake up in a place that feels safe, where my smile is genuine and my voice is heard. Where love is not just a word, but a living, breathing thing. I'm married twice. But my journey now is not about finding a husband. It's about finding peace. And this time, I know to look for it inside myself. I stayed with Sophie for a few more weeks. Her small apartment became my sanctuary. It was filled with warmth, conversation, and her easy laughter, a sound I realized I had deeply missed in my own life. She never pressured me, never told me what to do. She just listened, offering me the simple, profound gift of her presence. One rainy morning, I sat by her window with a cup of tea, watching the gray world outside. For the first time, the gloom didn't mirror my own feelings. I felt a sense of calm. I thought about Ryan and Kevin, and I finally asked myself the question that had been haunting me. Why did I stay so long in situations that were so clearly breaking me? The answer was fear. Fear of being alone. Fear of failing. I had clung to the hope that if I just tried harder, loved more, or was more patient, things would change. I believed that love was supposed to be a struggle. Now I understand. Real love doesn't make you feel small or invisible. It shouldn't hurt like that. I told Sophie I was ready to find my own place. Her face lit up. "I'll help you," she said, and she did. 2 weeks later, I was unlocking the door to a small, simple apartment. It had a tiny balcony overlooking a quiet street. It was perfect. I spent the first few days making it my own. I bought a soft blanket for the armchair, put my favorite mug by the window, and made the bed with crisp, white sheets. That first night, I sat on my balcony and looked up at the stars. The quiet was different here. It wasn't a cold, empty silence. It was a peaceful, welcoming one. It was the sound of my own life waiting for me. My days found a new rhythm. Morning walks, fresh fruit from the local market, afternoons spent reading in the park. I started smiling at strangers. The pain would still visit sometimes, a ghost from the past, but I learned not to fight it. I would acknowledge it, sit with it for a moment, and then let it go. "You are a part of my story," I would tell it, "but you do not write the ending." One afternoon in the park, an older woman sat on the bench next to me. We watched the flowers for a moment before she smiled at me. "They grow slow," she said, "but they always bloom." I smiled back. "Yes, they just need the right care." She nodded knowingly. "Just like people," she added. We sat in comfortable silence, and then she told me she came to the park often since her husband passed away last year. I found myself saying, "I lost too, but in a different way." She placed her hand gently on mine. "You are still young," she said with a kind warmth. "You will grow strong again." Her words were a balm to my soul. A few days later, a message from Kevin popped up. "Are you okay?" I stared at the words on the screen and felt nothing. No anger, no sadness, just a quiet finality. I deleted the message without replying. That door was closed, and I had no desire to reopen it. I realized how far I had come. I had gone from begging for love to finding peace in my own company. Life began to bring new connections. I ran into an old friend from school, Zoe, at the grocery store. "We should meet up," she said, and we did. Over coffee, we discovered we had both been through recent divorces. "I thought I was the only one who felt so lost," she confessed. "Me too," I replied. We laughed, a laugh of shared understanding and relief. It felt so good to speak the truth without shame. We started meeting every week, our walks and talks becoming a vital part of my healing. We weren't alone in our experiences. We were just silent. But now we were speaking, and in speaking we were healing. One evening, sitting on my balcony, I watched a father teach his little boy how to ride a bike. The boy wobbled, but his father ran alongside him, cheering him on. I smiled, a genuine, uncomplicated smile. I didn't feel a pang of longing or sadness. I just felt peace. I didn't know what my future held, but for the first time I was okay with the not knowing. I wasn't waiting for a man to complete my story. I was busy learning to love the one I was writing for myself. This morning I looked in the mirror. The sadness in my eyes has been replaced by a soft strength. I look at my reflection and see a woman who is not broken but healing. I married twice. I gave my heart away twice. I lost myself twice. But now, slowly, gently, and completely, I am coming back to me. And this time I will not let myself go.